The billionaire thought she was trespassing. Then he heard his son solve the impossible equation. What happened next didn't just change one girl's life. It transformed an entire community and shattered everything a wealthy father thought he knew about success. But here's the question I need you to answer before we dive in. Have you ever been underestimated because of where you came from? Or maybe you've overlooked someone brilliant because they didn't look the part. Drop a comment below, because the story will make you see talent in a completely different way. On the outskirts of Dallas, where sprawling estates sit behind iron gates and manicured hedges, Harold Briarwood had built an empire. Retired oil magnate, self-made billionaire. The kind of man whose handshake opened doors and whose reputation commanded respect in every room he entered. His world operated on a simple principle. Money talks, pedigree matters, connections are currency. But money couldn't solve his most frustrating problem. His 16-year-old son, Weston, was drowning in advanced mathematics. Harold had tried everything. Elite tutors charging $200 an hour. Prestigious learning centers. Private test prep coaches. Each one came with impressive credentials and left with hefty checks. But Weston's grades kept sliding. The equations might as well have been written in another language. The pressure was mounting. Legacy admissions to Ivy League schools required more than just a famous last name. They required performance. And Weston was running out of time. One crisp October morning, Harold left the office early. Unusual for him. But a deal had fallen through, and he needed to clear his head. He pulled into a circular driveway, already mentally drafting his next move. That's when he saw them on the porch. Weston sat cross-legged on the stone steps, notebook open, completely focused. Next to him sat a girl Harold had never seen before. She wore thrift store jeans with a patch on one knee, mismatched sneakers, one blue, one gray, that had clearly seen better days. Her backpack, worn at the edges and bursting with textbooks, sat beside her like an overstuffed companion. Harold's first instinct was territorial. Who was this girl? How did she get past the gate? But something made him pause. Maybe it was the way Weston leaned forward, actually engaged for once. Maybe it was the girl's animated hands, using a pencil and a small rock to demonstrate something on the concrete. Harold stepped out of his car quietly, stayed back, watched. The girl's voice carried across the lawn. Okay, forget the formula for a second. Think it like this. You're splitting pizza between friends, but some friends are hungrier than others. That's literally what ratios are. Weston stared at the notebook, then at the rock and pencil. Then something clicked behind his eyes. Harold recognized that look. Understanding. The moment confusion transforms into clarity. Wait, Weston grabbed his own pencil, started scribbling furiously. Numbers flowing, calculations that had stumped him for 3 weeks, suddenly making sense. He looked up, face split into a grin. I got it. I actually got it. The girl high-fived him. Simple, genuine. No fanfare. Harold stood frozen in his driveway. This girl, the stranger in mismatched shoes, had just accomplished what thousands of dollars couldn't. Hit that like button if you've ever witnessed someone prove everyone wrong, because what Harold learned next completely changed his perspective. Harold approached slowly, trying to keep his expression neutral. Weston, who's your friend? Weston jumped up, suddenly nervous. Dad, this is Taryn. She's been helping me with calc. We met at the library last week. Taryn stood, brushing off her jeans, extended her hand with quiet confidence. Mr. Briarwood, nice to meet you. Her handshake was firm, her eyes direct. No intimidation, no false deference. Harold found himself caught off guard. You're quite the teacher, he said carefully. How do you know Weston? I saw him struggling at the library. Taryn explained. I was there doing my own homework. He looked frustrated, so I asked if he needed help. Turns out we're good at different things. Over the next hour, Harold pieced together Taryn's story. She was the daughter of a single mother who cleaned houses in the neighborhood, including, Harold realized with a jolt, the home of his business partner 2 streets over. Taryn was entirely self-taught. Her family couldn't afford internet at home, so she walked 2 miles to the public library and back every day after school. She borrowed advanced textbooks, watched educational videos on the library computers, scavenged extra worksheets from teachers who recognized her hunger to learn. "I help my younger siblings with their homework," she said simply. "You learn to teach when you have to explain fractions to a 7-year-old 5 different ways before bedtime." That explained her teaching style. Patient, creative, relentless in finding the right angle. That evening, Harold couldn't stop thinking about her. He invited Taryn back for dinner, an unusual move that made his wife raise her eyebrows. Over roasted chicken, Harold asked a question that had been burning in his mind. "What do you want to do? After high school?" Taryn's eyes lit up in a way that made Harold's chest tighten. "I want to be a teacher. Maybe even a scientist, if I can figure out the money part." "Scholarships?" Harold asked. "Scholarships, odd jobs, community college first." She said it matter-of-factly, no self-pity, just the reality of her world. "If I work hard enough and get lucky enough, maybe I can transfer to university eventually." No bitterness, no resentment, just pure determination burning beneath a calm surface. Harold looked at this girl in her thrift store clothes, carrying the weight of her family's dreams on teenage shoulders, teaching herself advanced mathematics by library computer light, and recognized something profound. She had something his money couldn't buy, something his elite tutors lacked despite their credentials. She had grit, creativity, hunger, the kind of intelligence that thrives not because of privilege, but in spite of obstacles. For 3 days, Harold thought about Taryn. It consumed him in a way business deals hadn't in years. He could write a check for her tuition. Simple, clean, expected. But Harold hadn't become a billionaire by thinking small, and something told him that wasn't the answer. What would actually create change? On the 4th day, he called Taryn and asked her to meet him at his office. She arrived carrying that same overstuffed backpack, looking tiny in the marble lobby of Briarwood Enterprises. "I want to sponsor your education," Harold said without preamble. "Full ride, undergraduate, graduate school if you want it, all expenses covered." Taryn's face went pale. "Mr. Briarwood, I can't. That's too much." "I'm not finished." Harold leaned forward. "I also have a proposal. I want you to design a tutoring program for my son's school." Her confusion was obvious. "Design it. Create it from scratch. You'll be a paid consultant, good money, professional title. I want you to build a peer tutoring system that actually works. Not the garbage programs they have now where rich kids tutor other rich kids and everyone pretends it matters." He watched her process this, saw the wheels turning behind those sharp eyes. "Here's the revolutionary part," Harold continued. "You're going to recruit your tutoring team from students like you, working-class backgrounds, kids who had to fight for every A, who understand struggle and creativity in ways my son's classmates never will." Taryn sat back. "They won't accept me there. The other students, I mean." "Then let's change what acceptance looks like." The silence stretched between them. Harold could see her weighing it, the opportunity against the risk, the chance against the cost. Finally, Taryn nodded. "Okay, but I have conditions." Harold almost laughed. Of course she did. The student tutors get paid fairly, not charity wages. Real money for real work. They get college prep support, mentorship, connections. And if this works, you fund it for at least 3 years, so it can actually make a difference. Harold extended his hand. "Deal." 2 weeks later, Taryn launched a program. She recruited 8 students she knew from her neighborhood in the library, all brilliant, all overlooked, all hungry to prove themselves. Harold provided everything: dedicated space at the school, materials, technology, and generous stipends for student tutors. Dallas society buzzed like a disturbed beehive. At country clubs and charity galas, the whisper spread. Harold Briarwood had brought those people into the elite academy. Some approved quietly. Others were scandalized. Harold's business partner cornered him at lunch. "You're really doing this? Mixing working-class kids with our students?" "Talent doesn't check bank accounts," Harold replied coolly. "And if our kids can't learn from people who don't look like them, we've failed as parents." Subscribe if you believe talent deserves opportunity regardless of zip code, because what happened next proved Harold right in ways even he didn't expect. The first month was awkward. Elite students arrived for tutoring sessions skeptical, sometimes hostile. They'd grown up with private tutors who treated them gently, never pushing too hard. Taryn's team didn't coddle. "You can do better than this," one tutor told a student who'd barely tried. "I know, because I work twice as hard with half your resources. Don't insult me by not trying." It was a wake-up call some students needed desperately. Then the results started rolling in. Grades improved across the board, not marginally, but dramatically. Students who'd been coasting suddenly had to match the work ethic of tutors who'd never had the luxury of coasting. But something more important was happening beneath the surface. Perspectives were shifting. Wealthy students learned that intelligence wasn't about who had the best SAT prep course. They learned humility, different problem-solving approaches, the creativity that comes from not having easy answers. The working-class tutors gained confidence, professional connections, and access opportunities that always felt impossibly distant. Weston became Taryn's biggest advocate. He started a fundraiser at school to expand the program, invited Taryn to family events where she networked with people who could change her trajectory. The network effect spread like wildfire. Harold's initial investment supported Taryn, but the program reached dozens of overlooked families. Not just tutoring, mentorship, college application support, internship connections, professional guidance. Harold's friends started asking questions, uncomfortable questions about their own assumptions. A few started similar programs at other schools. Walls between privilege and poverty didn't collapse overnight, but they began to crack. A wealthy student invited his tutor to dinner and met her mother, realized his family's housekeeper was someone's hero, not just invisible help. A tutor helped a wealthy kid understand their own housekeeper's daughter, creating a friendship that bridged two worlds. Connections formed that would have been impossible 6 months earlier. Taryn herself transformed, not because Harold rescued her. She'd never needed rescuing, but because she'd been seen, recognized, given a platform to build something sustainable. She walked through the academy halls no longer invisible, respected, not pitted, building a legacy that would outlast her time there. Harold transformed too. Late one night, sharing bourbon with Weston, he admitted something he'd never said aloud. "My greatest investment wasn't oil, son. It was recognizing that girl on our porch had more to teach me than I had to teach her." His exclusive circle expanded, not to include more money, but more substance, more perspectives, more humanity. 1 year after that October morning, the program was expanding to 3 other Dallas schools. Taryn had been accepted to a top-tier university with a full scholarship plus a stipend from the foundation the program had created. The community had transformed, not because one billionaire wrote checks, but because he had the humility to recognize talent he'd almost overlooked. Here's what the story is really about. Harold's humility to recognize brilliance outside his bubble, Taryn's courage to step into spaces that weren't built for her, and a community's willingness to let their assumptions die. What changed wasn't just Taryn's circumstances. It was an entire community's understanding of where wisdom lives. Because here's the truth that makes people uncomfortable. Wisdom doesn't wear designer clothes. Genius doesn't announce itself with credentials from the right schools. Sometimes, maybe most times, the person who can solve your impossible problem is the one you'd overlook at first glance. The girl in mismatched sneakers. The kid from the wrong side of town. The person whose brilliance was invisible to you because of assumptions you didn't even know you carried. So let me ask you something. Who are you overlooking right now? What talent is invisible to you because you're measuring it against the wrong criteria? Harold Briarwood had everything: money, power, connections, respect. But he couldn't help his own son until he recognized that a self-taught girl with a worn backpack had more to offer than a dozen expensive tutors. Real privilege isn't having money. Real privilege is having the humility to learn from anyone, to recognize that the most valuable lessons often come from unexpected teachers. Harold had wealth. Taryn had wisdom. Together, they proved that transformation happens when we stop assuming we know who has something to teach us. That October morning, Harold almost missed it. almost dismissed her, almost let prejudice blind him to brilliance, sitting on his own porch. What changed everything was a single moment of curiosity, a willingness to pause, watch, and question his assumptions. One decision, one unlikely friendship, one community forever changed. So here's my challenge to you. Share this story with someone who needs reminding that greatness comes from unexpected places. Comment below and tell me, who's someone you underestimated who ended up teaching you everything? Who's the Terran in your life that you almost missed? And don't forget to subscribe to Earthly Tales for more stories that challenge how you see the world. Because sometimes the most powerful lessons come from the people we least expect. Thank you for watching. And remember, talent doesn't check bank accounts. Wisdom doesn't wear designer labels. And the next person who changes your life might be wearing mismatched sneakers. Keep your eyes open. You never know who's about to teach you everything.